Tonight, I've got a tale straight out of the Wild West, full of mystery, danger, and a secret that'll keep you hooked until the very end. Before we ride into this story, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss another tale from the frontier. Now, let's begin. The sun was sinking low over the dusty town of Silver Creek, painting the sky in streaks of red and gold. The streets were quiet, too quiet. Even the usual clang of boots on wooden planks outside the saloon seemed to have vanished. Sheriff Daniel Hayes stood on the porch of his office, his eyes scanning the horizon. Something in the air felt heavy, like a storm was about to break, though the sky was clear. His hand rested on the butt of his revolver, but his mind was on something else entirely. On her. For weeks, Silver Creek had whispered about the stranger. A young woman, tied up in the barn at the edge of town. Folks said she was dangerous. Folks said she was cursed. Others said she wasn't human at all. The sheriff didn't believe in curses or ghost stories, but he believed in secrets. And he could feel, deep in his gut, that this woman carried one. He walked down the creaking steps and crossed the street, his spurs jingling softly. The barn loomed ahead, dark against the setting sun. As he pushed the door open, the smell of hay and old wood hit him, mingled with something faint and sweet, like wildflowers after rain. And then he saw her. She was tied to a wooden beam, wrists bound with coarse rope. Her dress was torn, her hair tangled, yet her eyes burned like fire in the half-light. She didn't flinch when he entered. She didn't look away. "Sheriff," she whispered, her voice low, trembling yet steady. "I'll be yours forever, if you just set me free." The words froze him in place. He'd heard confessions before, pleas, cries, bargains. But this was different. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice sharper than he intended. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Someone you don't want to know. Someone they warned you about." The sheriff stepped closer, boots crunching on the hay. His hand brushed against the rope. It was tight, cutting into her skin. Her wrists were raw, but she didn't wince. "They told me you were dangerous," he said. "And do you believe them?" she asked, her voice almost a dare. He studied her face. She looked fragile, yet there was something untamed in her eyes, something that made his heart pound. "I don't know what to believe," he admitted. The barn creaked with the evening wind. Dust swirled in the last light slipping through the cracks in the wall. "Then untie me," she said softly, "and you'll find out." His hand hovered over the knot. Every instinct screamed at him to be careful, but something else pulled at him, a feeling he couldn't shake, a pull stronger than fear, stronger than reason. Slowly he loosened the rope. The fibers scraped against his fingers, stubborn from days of being tied. Finally, with one last tug, the knot gave way. The rope slid from her wrists, falling to the ground with a heavy thud. And then it happened. The woman lifted her hands slowly, her wrists free at last. She looked at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Not a reflection, not a trick of the sun, but a glow. The sheriff staggered back, his heart slamming against his ribs. "What are you?" he breathed. Her smile widened, soft and haunting all at once. She leaned closer, her whisper brushing against his ear like the chill of midnight air. "I told you," she murmured. "I'll be yours forever." And as the barn door creaked open from the wind, Sheriff Daniel Hayes realized he had just unleashed something far greater than he could ever imagine. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed outside. Someone was coming. Someone who might already know the truth he had just stumbled into. The sheriff turned back to her, but she was gone. The ropes lay in a heap on the ground. The beam she had been tied to stood empty, and all that remained was her whisper, still hanging in the air, promising something he couldn't escape. Sheriff Daniel Hayes stood frozen in the barn, staring at the heap of rope where the mysterious woman had been. His chest rose and fell in sharp bursts. 1 second she was there, her wrists raw, her voice like a warning wrapped in a promise. The next, she vanished, leaving nothing but silence and the faint scent of wildflowers. The heavy footsteps outside grew closer. Whoever it was, Daniel didn't want them finding the rope on the floor or the truth written across his face. He kicked the rope into a pile of hay just as the barn door creaked open. "Sheriff?" It was Deputy Clark, a young man with eager eyes and a nervous twitch. His hat sat crooked, and he always looked like he'd just run a mile. "Clark," Daniel said, steadying his voice, "what are you doing here?" "Came to check if everything was all right." Folks been talking again. Clark's eyes darted around the barn. "About her." Daniel's jaw tightened. "She's gone." Clark blinked. "Gone? Sheriff, how could she be gone? She was tied up." Daniel took a slow breath. "She isn't here now, and I didn't see her leave." The deputy swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "You mean she just vanished?" Daniel didn't answer. He couldn't. They walked out of the barn together, the last rays of sun stretching long shadows across the ground. The town of Silver Creek lay quiet beyond the hills, lanterns starting to glow in windows. The saloon piano carried a faint tune, almost drowned out by the hush that had settled over the streets. Clark leaned closer. "Sheriff, you know what they say about her, don't you? Some folks swear she's a witch. Others say she's cursed by the devil himself." "Stories," Daniel muttered, but his voice lacked conviction. He could still see her eyes glowing in the dim barn light. Clark wasn't done. "My granddaddy used to tell me tales. Said some women out west weren't really women at all. Said they were spirits, lonely, hungry, waiting for a man foolish enough to set them free." Daniel stopped walking. His boots crunched in the dirt. "What did you just say?" "Spirits, Sheriff." That's what he called them, ghost women. They'll whisper promises, swear love, anything to make you loosen the rope or open the door. Once you do, they've got you. The sheriff's pulse quickened. "I'll be yours forever," she had whispered. He shook the thought away and forced a smile. "You've been reading too many dime novels, Clark. Go on back to town. I'll handle this." Clark hesitated, then tipped his hat and left, glancing over his shoulder as though the shadows themselves might be listening. Daniel turned back toward the barn. His instincts told him the woman, whatever she was, hadn't gone far. He stepped inside again, letting his eyes adjust to the dark. That's when he saw it. On the beam where she had been tied, etched into the wood, were words that hadn't been there before. Fresh scratches, deep and uneven, as if carved by desperate hands. "I'll find you at midnight." A chill crawled up his spine. Midnight wasn't far off. The hours dragged. The sheriff sat alone in his office, the ticking clock on the wall pounding louder with every second. He poured himself a glass of whiskey, but his hand trembled so badly the liquid sloshed over the rim. Outside, the town had gone to sleep. Only the coyotes howled in the distance, their cries carried on the night wind. He tried to tell himself it was all in his head. The woman wasn't a spirit. There was no curse. Maybe she'd escaped through some hidden crack in the barn. Maybe she'd run into the hills. That glow in her eyes? A trick of the fading sun, nothing more. But when the clock struck 12, all those lies unraveled. The office door creaked open. Daniel shot to his feet, hand gripping his revolver. There she was, standing in the doorway, her dress still torn, her hair wild, but her eyes, those glowing eyes, locked onto him with an intensity that rooted him to the floor. "You freed me," she whispered. Daniel raised his gun, but his hand shook. "What do you want?" Her lips curved into that same haunting smile. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the wooden floor. "I told you," she breathed. "I'll be yours forever." He swallowed hard, his finger hovering over the trigger. Forever's a long time. Her smile faded into something darker. "Not for me." And before he could react, the lantern flame flickered wildly, plunging the room into shadows. The sheriff blinked, and she was gone again. Only her voice lingered, floating through the dark. "You belong to me now, Daniel Hayes." The clock ticked on, steady and merciless. The sheriff lowered his revolver, his breath ragged. He wasn't sure if he was dreaming, or if Silver Creek had just stepped into a nightmare it would never escape. Sheriff Daniel Hayes didn't sleep that night. He sat in his office chair, staring at the dying lantern flame until it sputtered into darkness. Her voice still rang in his head. "You belong to me now." By dawn, the town of Silver Creek was stirring. Wagons rattled down the main street, ranchers led their cattle past the watering trough, and the saloon's doors banged open with the first wave of miners looking for whiskey. To them, it was just another day. To Daniel, the world felt like it had tilted sideways. He needed answers. After a quick wash and a black coffee strong enough to burn his throat, Daniel saddled his horse and rode toward the edge of town. There was one man who knew every rumor, every secret that drifted through Silver Creek. Old Elias, the gravekeeper. The graveyard sat on a lonely hill, where crooked stones leaned like drunks after a long night. Elias was already there, shovel in hand, his wiry frame bent, but his eyes sharp. "Sheriff," Elias rasped, tipping his hat. "You look like you seen a ghost." Daniel dismounted, dust crunching beneath his boots. "Maybe I have. I need to ask about the woman, the one they tied in the barn." Elias's expression darkened. He stuck the shovel into the earth and leaned on it. "So you met her?" Daniel nodded. "She's gone. But I don't think she left." The old man's gaze drifted to the horizon. "Her name's Anna Calloway. Or at least that's what it was once. Came to Silver Creek near 2 years ago. No family, no past anyone could trace. Just showed up one night, bleeding and half dead, begging for help." Daniel frowned. "And the town tied her up?" Elias shook his head. "Not at first. Folks took her in, fed her, gave her work at the inn. But strange things started happening. Horses spooked at nothing, wells turned black. Men swore they saw her walking in 2 places at once." Daniel's stomach tightened. Stories. Gossip. "Maybe," Elias said, his voice low. "But then men began to die. 3 ranchers. All of them swore they were in love with her. Each one found cold in his bed, no mark on him. Just empty." The sheriff swallowed hard. "And that's when they tied her up." "Aye," Elias said. "Superstition runs deep in this town. They bound her with rope blessed by the preacher, kept her in that barn. Figured it was safer than putting her in the jail. And they waited. For what? I don't think even they knew." Daniel stared at the ground, his mind racing. The woman's whisper came back to him. "I'll be yours forever." "She said those exact words to me," he muttered. Elias's face went pale. "Then you're marked, Sheriff. She's chosen you." Daniel clenched his fists. "I don't believe in curses." "Belief don't matter," Elias said grimly. "If she set her eyes on you, you'll find out soon enough." That evening, Daniel returned to town with a weight pressing on his chest. He walked through Silver Creek's main street, trying to shake the words from his head. He passed the saloon, where piano music spilled into the dusty air. Laughter rose from inside, carefree and warm. For a moment he longed to step in, drown his fear in whiskey, and pretend none of this was real. But he couldn't. Not as sheriff. He went back to the barn at sunset. The rope still lay in the hay where he'd left it. He lit a lantern and scanned the walls. The carved words, "I'll find you at midnight," seemed deeper now, almost bleeding in the light. And then he heard it. A soft laugh, drifting through the rafters. He spun around, lantern raised. "Show yourself." She stepped into the glow. Anna. Her dress still torn, her skin pale, but her beauty undeniable. Her eyes shimmered like embers in the dark. "You searched for me," she said softly, "even when you told yourself you wouldn't." Daniel's grip tightened on the lantern. "I need answers." "Who are you really? What do you want from this town?" Her smile faltered, and for the first time he saw sadness flicker across her face. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. "I didn't ask to be what I am. They feared me, so they bound me. But you freed me. And now, you're bound to me instead." Daniel's pulse hammered. "Bound how?" Anna stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "By your heart. By your soul. And when the time comes, you'll understand why." The sheriff shook his head, backing away. "You're talking in riddles." She tilted her head, studying him with a strange tenderness. "Not riddles, Daniel. Warnings," and then she was gone again, like smoke slipping through his fingers. The lantern flickered, leaving him alone with the rope, the carvings, and the cold truth sinking into his bones. Anna wasn't just a woman. She wasn't just a ghost story. She was something caught between life and death, love and curse. And he was in deeper than he'd ever meant to be. That night, Daniel lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. Every creak of the floorboards made him flinch. Every gust of wind carried her whisper. Finally, he closed his eyes, and when he did, he saw her face. Sad, beautiful, glowing in the dark. When morning came, one thing was clear. If he didn't uncover the truth of Anna Calloway soon, Silver Creek, and maybe his own soul, would never be the same. The morning sun cast long shadows across Silver Creek, but Sheriff Daniel Hayes felt none of its warmth. He hadn't slept, not really. The whisper of Anna Calloway haunted him, curling around every thought, gnawing at his sense of reason. He needed more than rumors. He needed the truth. That's why he found himself walking toward the town's small library, a weather-worn building tucked between the general store and the church. Most men in Silver Creek never stepped foot inside. But Daniel knew the woman who kept it, Miss Clara, had a memory sharper than any rifle shot. When he stepped through the door, Clara looked up from her desk, glasses perched low on her nose. "Sheriff Hayes," she said, surprised. "This is a rare sight." "Morning, Clara," Daniel said, removing his hat. "I need records. Old records. Land deeds, birth registries, anything from the last 20 years. Her brow furrowed. "That's an odd request." "What are you looking for?" Daniel hesitated, then lowered his voice. "A name. Calloway, Anna Calloway." Clara's eyes widened ever so slightly, but she said nothing. Instead, she stood, her long skirts swishing as she walked to a back shelf. She pulled a thick ledger down, dust puffing into the air. "This is the town registry," she explained, flipping through the pages. "Every family that's ever lived here." Daniel leaned over as she stopped on a faded entry. There it was. Calloway. "Jeremiah Calloway," Clara read aloud. "Arrived in Silver Creek nearly 15 years ago. Claimed a parcel of land near Willow Creek Ridge." She glanced at Daniel. "No wife listed, but..." She turned the page. "Daughter. Anna Calloway, born in this county." Daniel's mouth went dry. So she is from here. Clara nodded slowly. But it says here she died, age 16. Daniel's breath caught. Died. Clara tapped the record with her finger. Fever. Buried in Silver Creek Cemetery. Jeremiah followed 2 years later. Consumption. Daniel's chest tightened. He had just seen Anna, glowing eyes and all, whispering in the shadows. How could she be dead on paper but alive before his very eyes? He forced his voice steady. Thank you, Clara. That'll do. As he turned to leave, Clara spoke softly. Sheriff, if Anna Calloway walks this town now, you best be careful. Some things don't stay buried without reason. Anna Calloway, 1847 to 1863. Beloved daughter. The letters were weathered, the stone chipped. But there was no mistaking it. She had been laid to rest here, and yet she was walking, whispering, alive. Kneeling before the grave, Daniel touched the stone. The earth beneath it looked undisturbed, as though no shovel had ever broken it. A cold wind swept the hill, raising goosebumps along his arms. He whispered, almost to himself, "What are you?" That night, the sheriff sat alone at his desk, staring at a family Bible that had belonged to his mother. He had a sudden urge to flip through it, to see if the name Calloway meant anything more, and there it was, scrawled in faded ink on the inside cover. Rebecca Hayes married Thomas Calloway, 1828. Daniel's eyes widened. His grandmother, his own bloodline, was tied to the Calloways, which meant Anna wasn't just some stranger, she was kin. The realization shook him to his core. He wasn't bound to her only by rope or curse. He was bound by blood. The knock on the office door came just past midnight. She stood there. Anna, pale in the moonlight, her torn dress fluttering in the night wind. "You've learned," she said softly. Daniel's voice was hoarse. "You're my family." Her smile was faint, almost tender. "Once, long ago. But I died, Daniel. They buried me. And still I walk." "Why?" he demanded. "Why come back? Why me?" Her eyes glowed brighter, and for the first time her voice trembled with pain. "Because the Calloways were cursed. And you're the last of us. Our blood is tied to this town, and neither of us can escape it." The sheriff's throat went dry. "What curse?" Anna stepped closer, her whisper cold as the grave. "The curse of loving and losing. Every man who gives me his heart dies, Daniel. Their souls feed the shadow that keeps me here. And now..." She reached out, fingers grazing his chest. "You've set me free, which means the curse has chosen you." Daniel staggered back, breath ragged. "No, I won't let it." Her eyes softened. "You don't have a choice." And then, as quickly as she'd appeared, she melted into the shadows, leaving Daniel alone with the truth. The sheriff of Silver Creek was not just fighting to protect his town. He was fighting to survive his own family's curse. The next day, Silver Creek buzzed with whispers. Folks spoke in hushed tones, eyes darting over shoulders, as though the very wind might carry their words to unwelcome ears. Sheriff Daniel Hayes felt every gaze as he walked down the main street. They knew something. Maybe they didn't know everything, but they knew enough. That the woman was free, and that he had something to do with it. Inside the saloon, the piano had gone quiet. A dozen men sat crowded around a single table, their voices low but sharp. At the center was Reverend Cole, the town's preacher, his Bible sitting heavy on the wood like a gavel. When Daniel stepped in, the room fell silent. "Sheriff," Reverend Cole said, rising to his feet, "we were just talking about you." Daniel adjusted his hat. "I figured." One of the ranchers, a thick-set man with a scar across his cheek, spat tobacco into a tin. "Word is, you let her go." Daniel's hand twitched near his belt. "Word travels too fast in this town." Cole raised his palm to settle the men. His eyes, calm, calculating, locked on Daniel. "Is it true, Sheriff? Did you untie her?" The sheriff hesitated. Lying would do no good. These men could smell deceit like coyotes on a carcass. "I did," he admitted, And if I hadn't, someone else would have. Rope can't hold back what she is.
A murmur rippled through the room.
Reverend Cole leaned forward. Then you've doomed us all. Daniel's jaw clenched. No, but I've seen enough to know she isn't just a woman. She's family. My family. And I aim to find a way to end this curse without burying her again. The preacher slammed his hand on the table, startling the men. End it? There's only one way to end it. Fire and rope. Burn the body, scatter the ashes, and pray her spirit never rises again. Daniel's blood ran hot. You try to lay a hand on her, and you'll answer to me. The saloon went still. Chairs scraped back as men rose, their faces hard. Careful, Sheriff, the rancher growled. Sounds like you're choosing her side. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low but firm. I'm choosing the side of truth. You kill her without understanding what she is. You might bring worse down on this town than you can imagine. Cole narrowed his eyes. Then you'd best find your truth fast. Because tomorrow night, when the moon is high, we'll take matters into our own hands. That evening, Daniel paced his office like a caged animal. He could hear the town outside, boots striking wood, hushed voices sharpening into anger. The people of Silver Creek were preparing for war. And the target was Anna. But how could he stop them when he didn't even know if she was friend or foe? The door creaked open, and there she was. Anna. Pale, quiet, her torn dress drifting around her like smoke. They're planning to burn you, Daniel said, not even looking up. I know, she whispered. He turned sharply. Then why aren't you running? Why come back here at all? Her eyes glistened, soft in the lantern glow. Because I can't leave. The curse ties me to this place, just as it ties you to me. Daniel gritted his teeth. Then tell me how to break it. Anna stepped closer, her hand trembling as she reached for his. The curse was born from blood. Calloway blood. My father made a bargain long ago. One life for prosperity. One soul for survival. But bargains with shadows never end clean. The price passed on to me. And now, her eyes welled with tears. To you. Daniel pulled his hand away. So if I die, the curse dies with me. She shook her head fiercely. No, if you die, the curse grows stronger. It will spread through this town, through every drop of Hayes' blood left. The sheriff swallowed hard, the weight of her words pressing down. Then what's the way out? Anna's voice was barely a whisper. The curse ends only when I choose to let go. When I choose not to take another heart. Daniel studied her face. For the first time he saw not just a haunting spirit, but a woman. Trapped, tired, desperate for freedom. Then choose, he said softly. End it. Her eyes burned, glowing faintly in the dim. I want to, but they won't let me. Not while the town hunts me like an animal. Not while shadows feed on their fear. Outside, voices rose in anger. Torches flickered through the cracks in the office window. The mob was already gathering. Anna's whisper trembled in the dark. They're coming. Daniel's hand went to his revolver. Then we stand together. She looked at him, eyes wide. Even if it kills you? His jaw tightened. If it means saving this town, and you, then so be it. As the first torch struck the ground outside, lighting the dirt road in flames, Daniel Hayes realized the truth. Silver Creek wasn't just facing a curse, it was about to face a reckoning. The night air was thick with smoke and fury. Torches bobbed through Silver Creek's main street like fiery serpents, the angry shouts of townsfolk rising with every step. Sheriff Daniel Hayes stood on the porch of his office, revolver heavy at his side, Anna Calloway at his shoulder. Her torn dress fluttered in the wind, her eyes glowing faintly in the torchlight. She looked both fragile and unearthly, half woman, half ghost. The mob stopped in front of them. Reverend Cole raised his Bible high. Sheriff Hayes, step aside. That creature dies tonight. Daniel's voice boomed through the smoke. She's no creature. She's cursed, yes, but cursed by our blood, by the sins of this town. You burn her, you burn yourselves. The rancher with the scar shoved forward, spitting into the dirt. You've gone soft, Sheriff. She's bewitched you like the others. We'll end this now. Torches lifted higher. Boots stamped. The crowd surged. Daniel raised his revolver. First man to cross this line answers to me. The mob hesitated. No one wanted to be the first to test the sheriff's aim. But fear makes men brave, and hate makes them reckless. A stone flew from the crowd, striking the wall beside Daniel's head. He didn't flinch. Anna, however, stepped forward, her voice carrying above the noise. "You think killing me will save you," she said, her tone trembling but fierce. "But you're wrong. The curse is not mine alone. It belongs to every drop of Calloway blood, to every man who fed it with fear, to every soul that bound me and left me to rot." The crowd fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down like a storm. Reverend Cole sneered. "Lies. She speaks with the devil's tongue." Anna's eyes glowed brighter. "Then watch." She lifted her hands, and for a moment the night itself seemed to shudder. The torches flickered. The air grew icy. Shadows slithered across the ground, twisting around the mob's feet. Men gasped. Women screamed. Daniel stepped between them. "Enough!" he shouted, turning to Anna. "If you want this curse to end, choose it now. Let go. End it." Anna's gaze locked on his. For a heartbeat, her glow softened. Tears welled in her eyes, glimmering like broken stars. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she whispered. "I never did." "Then prove it," Daniel said, his voice breaking. "Choose to be free. Choose to let me be free." The crowd held its breath. Even Reverend Cole faltered, his hand trembling on the Bible. Anna looked down at her hands. They were trembling, glowing with an unnatural light. Then, slowly, she lowered them to her chest. "I choose," her voice cracked, "to let go." A silence fell, so deep the world itself seemed to stop. And then, the glow in her eyes dimmed. Her hands dropped to her sides. The shadows shrieked, high, hollow, furious, as though ripped from the earth itself. They twisted, fought, then dissolved into smoke that vanished into the night sky. The torches steadied, the air warmed, and Anna sank to her knees. Daniel rushed forward, catching her before she hit the ground. Her body was light, too light, like holding the wind. Her eyes met his one last time. No glow, just sadness, and something close to peace. "You freed me," she whispered, "and now you're free too." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, and then she faded, dissolving in his arms like mist in the morning sun. All that remained was the faint scent of wildflowers. The mob stood stunned. No one moved, no one spoke. Reverend Cole lowered his Bible, his face pale. The rancher with the scar dropped his torch into the dirt. Daniel rose slowly, his eyes sweeping the crowd. "It's over," he said. His voice was hoarse, but it carried. "Anna Calloway is gone. The curse is broken." No one argued. The people of Silver Creek shuffled back into the dark, their anger drained, their fear replaced by shame. One by one, torches went out, leaving only the quiet hum of crickets and the sheriff standing alone in the street. At dawn, Daniel walked back to the hilltop cemetery. He stopped at Anna's grave, kneeling before the weathered stone. "Rest now," he murmured, "for both of us." He placed his hat over his heart and stayed there until the sun rose fully, casting gold across the headstones. For the first time in weeks, he felt the weight lift from his chest. Silver Creek would move on. The whispers would fade. But Daniel Hayes would never forget the woman who whispered, "I'll be yours forever," and the night she chose freedom over curse, peace over damnation. And though her body was gone, every time the wind carried the scent of wildflowers through town, he would remember. And that's the end of today's Wild West tale. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story with others who love a bit of mystery and the old frontier. More gripping tales are on the way, so stay tuned. Until then, keep your lantern lit and your boots steady.